I grew up on a farm, where the days started before sunrise and ended long after the sun dipped below the horizon. Life there was tough but honest. You knew the value of hard work, and you relied on the people around you, like family. At least that's what I used to believe. This story isn't easy for me to tell, but maybe that's why I need to share it. It's about how trust can shatter in the most unexpected way, in a place where loyalty and community mean everything. The farm belonged to Mr. and Mrs. Carter. They weren't just my employers. They were the kind of people who welcomed you with a warm meal after a long day and asked about your family as if it were their own. Mr. Carter was a man of few words, but when he spoke, you listened. Mrs. Carter, on the other hand, had this energy about her. She was warm, kind, always smiling, and always making sure everyone had enough to eat. To us workers, she felt almost like a second mother. There were about 6 of us working there during the season. Some were older men who'd been doing farm work all their lives. Others were younger, guys like me, still trying to find their place in the world. And then there was Luke. Luke wasn't like the rest of us. He was strong, sure, but he had this easy charm, this confidence that seemed out of place in the dirt and sweat of farm life. He was younger than Mr. Carter, but older than me, maybe in his early 30s. People liked him. He told jokes, kept the mood light, and worked hard enough to earn respect. At first, I thought nothing of it when Mrs. Carter laughed a little louder at his jokes, or when she found reasons to bring him extra lemonade during the hot afternoons. She was kind to everyone, after all. That was just who she was. But over time, I started to notice things. One evening, after a long day of baling hay, we all sat down for dinner at the long wooden table outside. The sky was painted orange and pink, and the air smelt like cut grass. Mrs. Carter served everyone, moving from plate to plate. But when she reached Luke, though, there was something different in her smile. Something softer, warmer. It was subtle, but it was there. I brushed it off. Maybe I was imagining it, but the little things kept piling up. She'd ask Luke to help her carry baskets into the kitchen, even when others were closer. Sometimes I'd pass by the farmhouse window and see them talking, just talking, but leaning in a little too close. And then there were the glances. Quick, stolen, but undeniable. At first, I told myself it wasn't my business. I was just a worker. Whatever happened between them wasn't my place to question. But the farm wasn't just any workplace. It was a family, a small world where everyone's lives overlapped. Secrets had no place here. One afternoon, I was fixing a fence at the far end of the pasture when I noticed Luke walking toward the barn. Mrs. Carter followed not long after, carrying a basket of eggs. It struck me as odd. She rarely went to the barn at that hour. Something about the way she glanced over her shoulder made my stomach tighten. I tried to focus on the fence, hammering nails into the wood, but my eyes kept drifting back to the barn. Minutes passed, then half an hour. Neither of them came out. When they finally did, Luke was adjusting his shirt, and Mrs. Carter's cheeks were flushed in a way I hadn't seen before. They walked out separately, pretending they hadn't been together at all. My heart sunk. I didn't want to believe it, but deep down I knew something was happening. That night, lying in my bunk, I couldn't sleep. My mind replayed the images over and over. The laughter, the glances, the barn. I thought about Mr. Carter, about how much he trusted her, how much he trusted us. The weight of what I'd seen pressed down on me like a stone. Was it really my place to say anything? Or should I keep quiet, pretend I hadn't noticed? I didn't have the answers, but I knew one thing for sure. Life on that farm was about to change forever. And I was right.
The next few weeks on the farm felt heavy, like the air itself was holding a secret. Work went on as usual. The cows still needed milking, the fields still needed tending, the fences still needed fixing. But underneath the rhythm of daily life, something had shifted. I tried to tell myself that maybe I was wrong. Maybe I just misunderstood what I'd seen. But the problem with suspicion is that once it takes root, it grows like weeds, and soon it's all you can see. One morning, I woke early, earlier than usual. The sky was still dark, the kind of blue that comes just before dawn. I walked toward the barn to fetch tools, and that's when I heard voices inside. A man's laugh, a woman's softer reply. I froze, my breath caught in my chest. It was Luke's voice, and then Mrs. Carter's. The barn door was slightly ajar, and through the crack I saw the faint glow of a lantern. My hands trembled, and for a moment I considered pushing the door open, but I didn't. I just stood there, listening, my stomach twisting with every sound. The words weren't clear, but the tone was unmistakable, whispered, intimate, not the kind of conversation a married woman should be having with another man. I left quietly, heart pounding, and tried to bury the memory, but it haunted me all day. Every time I saw them together after that, it was as if the voices echoed in my ears. At lunch, I sat at the long table with the other workers. Mr. Carter joined us that day, sitting at the head of the table. He was in good spirits, talking about the next harvest, about buying a new tractor. And across from him sat his wife, smiling, nodding, all while Luke sat just a little too close. I couldn't take my eyes off them. The way her hand brushed his arm when she passed him the bread, the way he looked at her, quick, careful, but with a spark that no one else seemed to notice. No one but me. "Everything all right, son?" Mr. Carter asked suddenly, catching me, staring into the distance. I nearly jumped. "Yes, sir, just tired from the morning work." He nodded and went back to his meal, but I felt a flush creep up my neck. I hated myself for knowing what he didn't. Later that week, something happened that nearly confirmed everything. It was late evening, and most of us had finished our chores. I stayed behind to stack some bales of hay in the loft. As I worked, I heard footsteps below. Curious, I peered through the slats. There they were, Luke and Mrs. Carter. She was standing close to him, her hands fidgeting with her apron. He leaned against a post, his posture relaxed, his eyes fixed on her like she was the only person in the world. Their words weren't clear, but the tone was unmistakable, whispered, intimate, not the kind of conversation a married woman should be having with another man. I left quietly, heart pounding, and tried to bury the memory, but it haunted me all day. Every time I saw them together after that, it was as if the voices echoed in my ears. That night, I couldn't sit still. I paced outside under the stars, the cool air doing nothing to calm me. I thought about Mr. Carter, about his kindness, his trust, his loyalty, and I thought about the betrayal unfolding under his nose. Should I tell him? Could I? But then another thought struck me. What if he already knew? Maybe that was the hardest part. I began to notice the little things, how Mr. Carter sometimes looked at Luke, how his jaw tightened when his wife lingered too long by the table. He wasn't a fool. Maybe he'd seen the same signs I had. And yet, he said nothing. The silence on the farm grew thicker. The workers joked less. Conversations felt shorter. And though no one said anything out loud, I had the sense that others were starting to notice too. A strange tension lingered in the air, like a storm cloud waiting to burst. One evening, as the sun dipped behind the hills, I found myself sitting on the fence, staring at the horizon. Old Man Harris, one of the senior workers, joined me. He lit a cigarette, took a drag, and said, without looking at me, "You've seen it too, haven't you?" I turned to him, startled. "Seen what?" He gave a dry chuckle. "Don't play dumb. You're young, but you got eyes. We all do." My throat dried. "So, it's not just me?" He shook his head. "Nah, folks notice. But around here, people keep their mouths shut. Ain't no good comes from stirring trouble in another man's marriage." His words sank deep. He was right, in a way. Speaking up could ruin everything. For Mr. Carter, for the farm, for all of us who depended on it. But staying silent felt like carrying a weight I couldn't bear. As I lay in bed that night, Harris's words echoed in my mind. No good comes from stirring trouble. But trouble has a way of finding you, whether you stir it or not. And soon it would find us all.
The storm broke sooner than I expected. It was late summer, the kind of evening when the air's thick and restless, the sky painted with bruised clouds. We had all gathered for supper, the workers at the long wooden table, Mr. Carter at the head, his wife by his side. Luke sat a few seats down, laughing too loudly at some joke, and Mrs. Carter's eyes lingered on him just a second too long. And then it happened. Mr. Carter set his fork down with a heavy clatter. The table fell silent. His eyes, usually calm and steady, burned with something I hadn't seen before. "Luke," he said, his voice low but sharp, "I need a word with you. Outside." The workers glanced at one another. No one moved. Luke froze, his grin faltering. Mrs. Carter's face went pale. "Now!" Mr. Carter snapped. Luke stood slowly, pushing his chair back. The scrape of the wood on the ground sounded louder than thunder. He followed Mr. Carter out into the yard. The rest of us left in stunned silence. I wanted to stay seated, pretend I hadn't heard, but something inside me wouldn't let me. Quietly, I rose and slipped to the doorway, peering into the dusk. The two men stood by the barn, shadows against the darkening sky. Mr. Carter's voice carried, raw and shaking. How long have you been making a fool of me on my own farm?" Luke held up his hands. "It's not what you think." "Don't you lie to me!" Mr. Carter roared, his fists clenched. "I've seen it. Everyone has seen it. You think I'm blind?" From the table behind me came a sob. Mrs. Carter, crumpling in her seat, her hands covering her face. Luke took a step forward. "Listen, she cares about me, and I care about her. It happened." The words hung heavy in the air, heavier than the storm clouds above us. Mr. Carter trembled, his face twisted with rage and pain. For a moment I thought he might strike Luke, but he didn't. Instead, his voice broke into something softer, something more devastating. "You were in my home, at my table. I trusted you." Luke looked away, shame flickering across his face. And then Mrs. Carter appeared in the doorway, her voice shaking. "Please, stop this. It was my fault. Her words caught in her throat. "I didn't mean for it to happen." Mr. Carter turned to her, his eyes shining with hurt. "Didn't mean for it to happen? You betrayed me. You betrayed everything we built." She reached for him, but he stepped back as if her touch burned. The silence that followed was unbearable. The workers shifted uncomfortably, their eyes fixed on the ground. None of us knew what to say. None of us dared move. Finally, Mr. Carter straightened his shoulders. His voice, though quiet, cut through the air like a blade. "Pack your things, Luke. You're finished here." Luke's jaw tightened, but he didn't argue. He turned and walked toward the bunkhouse, his steps heavy, each one echoing like a drumbeat of finality. Mrs. Carter stood frozen, her face streaked with tears. "Please, John, don't do this." But Mr. Carter didn't answer. He walked past her, his expression carved in stone, and disappeared into the farmhouse. The night settled heavy on the farm.
No one spoke as we cleared the table. No one dared to break the silence. The air was thick with grief, with shame, with the sense that nothing would ever be the same. Later, lying in my bunk, I stared at the ceiling, the events replaying over and over in my mind, the voices, the accusations, the tears. I thought about loyalty, about trust, about how fragile it all was. The next morning, Luke was gone, his bunk empty, his belongings packed away in the night. Mrs. Carter moved through the day like a ghost, her eyes red, her hands trembling. Mr. Carter didn't speak to her. He didn't speak to anyone. The farm kept running because it had to. The animals didn't care about broken hearts or betrayal, but the spirit of the place, the warmth that once made it feel like home, had been shattered. Weeks passed, but the wound never healed. Rumors spread to the neighboring farms, whispers of scandal that clung to the Carters' name. Business became harder. Workers left. The sense of family was gone. And me? I carried the weight of what I'd seen, of what I'd known all along. Sometimes I wondered if I should have spoken sooner, if it would have made any difference. But in the end, some truths destroy no matter when they're told. I learned something on that farm, something I'll never forget. Trust is like glass. Once it's broken, it may be pieced together, but the cracks will always show. And sometimes, no matter how strong the walls of a farmhouse may be, it's the secrets inside that bring it all crashing down.
Thanks for watching. Don't miss the next story.